Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 26, season 2 of Gunners and Blues. My name is Sean Morgan. I am joined by Andrew Gump, and it is Midweek Madness time. So, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see the cool little special overlay that we use. And because our official topic of the day is American football, I'm totally wearing my fucking American flag tank top that I have, that I normally reserve for wearing around like the 4th of July. But this is like one of the comfiest tank tops that I have ever owned, and I can't help but wear it at times where I probably shouldn't, because then people might think my political views are different than what they actually are. It's weird how, wearing certain things can elicit that response. Nevertheless, American
I
football.
have the same problem when I go nude.
Thankfully, if you are watching this on YouTube, that is not what you're seeing. That's not what you're seeing. But we are here to talk about American football. So we are primarily a footy podcast. For us here in the States, primarily known as soccer. And generally, we don't really delve too much into American football. And this episode really isn't to say, hey, this is what American football is, because that would be a stupid fucking premise for an episode, especially considering primarily our audience is stateside. And if you're not stateside and you want to know what American football is, there are just a multitude of other resources than listening to, us to talk about it. The reason I wanted to bring this up, because I think it's a very kind of divisive subject amongst a lot of footy fans, and I also think that it has a very special role here in the United States in regards to it being the headlining sport. So what I wanted to do with this episode is get your thoughts on a couple of things. One, if American football, how it impacted you maybe growing up or as an adult, if there was anything like an event that you attended, whether it be like a high school football game, college game, or if maybe you went to a bar and there's a game on and that caused a situation. I want to talk to you about the actual sport itself, and specifically around injuries and like the whole concussion issue, the CTE issue, how that started to pop up in footy as well. And if you think that's like some of the and I can talk through some of this, some of the steps, different leagues at different levels, like from going all the way down to Pee Wee football, all the way up to the NFL, some of the efforts that they've done to try to curb that. If you think that maybe footy should look at doing, stuff the same way. And then if you have any, personal connections to any teams or players, we can, maybe talk through that as well. So let's go ahead and let's, actually, which of those sounds the best to you? What do you want to dive into?
I mean, this is going to actually blow your mind, John, because I don't think I've ever talked about. I played American football for 3 years
Oh yeah.
in
So,
Tennessee. I played for 3 years in Tennessee,
what? So
and
what position did you play? Out of curiosity.
well, I originally joined. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of got peer pressured into it. I played every other sport, and they were like, "You can play this," and I was like, "Oh, I'll join as a place kicker, right? No big deal. Nothing's gonna happen." I played soccer as it was called, and I was good at it. I knew what I needed to do. And then I was at practice for like a week, and the coach was like, "You got a nice build." I was like, "Okay, okay." First of all, I was a little eerie. He's like, "Why are you talking about my
Yes,
build,
you got
bro?"
a nice build.
A nice build. I ended up being a fullback. I was like, "It's not what I signed up for, bro. This is not what I signed up."
Yeah,
It was.
bruising fullback. That's just what.
I mean, I was pretty well muscled at the time. Like I said, you play that many sports at a certain point in time, you're just going to build muscle.
No,
You are going to
that's
build muscle.
absolutely fair.
And I have always had a amazing sort of tenacity. I've talked about I have no flight reflex at all. I see something, I'm like, yeah, let's see what happens. So, and that helps, right? Like, when you're at the high school stage, middle school and high school stage, certain people just don't want to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give a shit. If we're being perfectly honest, it didn't bother me at all. I did get very irritated that, like I said, I really only wanted to be a place kicker. I was playing baseball. I didn't really have the wear and tear on my body to deal with this nonsense. So I stopped showing up for practice pretty regularly, but he still played me because I was good enough at the time. Like I said, just based on my athleticism and willingness to, follow directions when I was there, I guess is what he looked. But it was weird, right? Every other sport you play at a pee wee level, or I was on baseball traveling teams, you know, some like state teams and things like that. The coaches are at least, especially in Tennessee, because this is when I lived in Tennessee. They were creepy, man. They were so intense, and that's not my game for the most
Yeah.
part. That like I would say I was sitting out there in practice in the Tennessee summer, watching some dude say kill, kill, kill. We were just playing with, it was just us at practice. I was like, well, why are you doing this? And I'm not making this up. This dude liked to say kill, kill, kill. This is the same guy that gave me after school detention for saying hell in class, by the way.
It seems appropriate.
It didn't, I no comprendo for me. I was like, what? Wait a minute. I say hell in your class, you give me ASD, but then you go out here and tell me to kill, or tell big Mikey Perkins to kill me because he kept making me run these little things right up the middle, and this dude knew this and just slam. He was like 6'3", by the way, just like built for football. It was not fun. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I'm glad that I experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
In that I now don't seem like a complete idiot because I don't follow NFL like a lot of Americans. I'm aware of what's happening
Yeah.
in the game. If I get involved in a situation in which I'm going to have to talk with someone about it, I will do my basically sociopathic thing of studying it in my own way, which is if I look at something, I basically have memorized it, so I can just spew off a bunch of nonsense to make it sound like I'm very well informed.
Oh,
I'll do that.
So basically, how our podcast goes, right?
Perfect, Sean. Perfect. Perfect.
No,
Perfect.
so for me,
I
right?
know you do the same thing. I'm not even. Don't come with it. I know that you've done the same thing in your life.
What are you talking about? That is definitely not anything that I have ever done. You are thoroughly mistaken. For me, football growing up was never really something that I played outside of, yard football for a long time. What really, I think, resonated with me, and this probably explains my chosen career field, as well as kind of how I approach, like recording Brody Sports Talk, which is the NFL-centric podcast that I'm on. I really love stats. And for me, it was always about knowing the players, knowing the teams, and it doesn't matter what level, for basically, college football or, pro football. I knew all the players, all their positions, all the coaches. I knew the divisions, the conferences. I had all of this shit memorized. And it got to the point where, and even to this day, my dad or anybody in my family, if they have a sports related question, usually a football related question, rather than using Google like any rational person would in 2021, they will call me or text me and ask me the question. And it's usually like, yeah, this is who this is the player that you were thinking of from 1996, right? It's just a matter of I just simply remember it. I don't. For whatever reason, my mind has to say, you know what, John, this is very important information that you simply cannot forget ever. We have made this a permanent memory, a permanent fixture in your brain. Enjoy it. So that was my big thing. And, I enjoyed playing the sport, but there's a small problem. And that small problem is that I am not a tall guy. I am not a crazy fast guy. I am what I would like to call tactically adept. Like whenever I would play like yard football, I was actually really, really good at like playing free safety, just because I was generally great at following body movements and understanding where people were going to shift and like watching for those weight shifts and then watching people's eyes and watching things unfold. So I was really good at that. But the problem is I'm just not a big guy. And so it never really panned out for me. But this actually leads to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the increase in head injuries and brain injuries in this sport. So as a parent, I'm a parent to a daughter. And generally, I am all for, equality across the board. American football is generally not played by women, if only because it's historically speaking, it's the physicality difference. So so hypothetically, if I had sons, I would not let them play American football. I simply would not. And it has nothing to do with me being a footy guy. Like, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the lack of precautions and protections at multiple levels to help these kids and help their brains develop properly. My father will attest that him playing football and some of the injuries that he sustained negatively impacted him for essentially what has been the rest of his life. It is brutal, and it has this masculinity that surrounds it, that means that if you don't take a hit, right, or you don't hit somebody as hard as you can, then you are lesser because of it. So you playing football, you talked about whatever that guy's name was, trying to
Mikey Perkins. Oh my God.
good old Mikey Perkins, trying to lay you out, basically.
Yep. Every time. And that's actually, I'm really interested in this whole discussion, because when you look at it with sports, basically it's always been about getting better, being faster, being stronger. And players have, right, with the way we eat, the way we train, knowing the right type of fat to put on, or so on and so, the right type of muscle. That's why, in my opinion, you see a lot of the increase of, brain injuries, so because they're just, these players are hitting you, or are more athletic, right? And it's not like your skull has had the time to evolve with all this nonsense. Right? It's not your skull, the way the human skull is not evolving with the amount of ways that we've learned to manipulate the body to be basically a machine to go into these challenges. These I mixed a little bit of football, our footy jargon in there, but going into these tackles, these things like that, it's always kind of blown my mind. You look like at some of, in some of the injuries, especially to the head, the CT, and so on and so forth, and what it had, the effect it has on people's, mood swings, their overall mental states.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the negative things, I don't want to mention them, particularly on this podcast, what they've done that has made headlines. Maybe not all 100% because of that. Actually, I'm going to ask you, do you think, like with the Hernandez thing and some of the other things that have been in, do you think that was influenced by the, multiple traumas to the head?
Oh, 100%. Like, CTE has proven to be a contributing factor toward, a debilitation in decision making and rationality, and to a certain extent, empathy. And so you end up with these situations where ex-players are, leaving the sport and finding it very difficult to engage, and to borrow a military term, to engage in civilian life, right? You have a lot of ex-players who are no longer have the same sort of routine. And because of that, their drive changes, their means of exercising certain emotions changes. And so when you're not working out, day in, day out, week in, week out, you're not around a bunch of guys who are essentially inflating your sense of purpose, then some of the worst traits have an opportunity to come out if you're not applying yourself. And we've seen that time and time again with a lot of these ex-players. And, because of how much bigger and stronger kids are in high school, in comparison to, when we were in school, or even going back, well before that. It's these issues, these, traumatic brain injuries are happening at a younger and younger age. So we're seeing this where we used to see it in like ex-players. We're seeing this now happening in, current players who have decided to, step down because of CTE risks. Andrew Luck was a recent player. Don't know if you're familiar, but Andrew Luck was a quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, and had an injury scare, but nothing too substantial. But made the decision to essentially walk away from the NFL because he had his own his own personally, he become disengaged. And I think that's going to happen a lot more, and may not just really be exclusive to American football. I mean, we're seeing more and more different leagues, around the world, but especially here in the United States, where there's such a magnifying glass on CTE and traumatic brain injury. Hey, you can't head the ball until you are at a certain age. Because they don't. It's just as bad. Like, statistically speaking, it is just as bad. And it's tough to say, well, how does the sport as a whole deal with it? Because I mean, you look across the board at multiple sports and multiple organizations, and they're hardly ever on the same page about anything, right? So I don't know if we'll ever really get, I think, a consensus positive approach in dealing with this completely. But at least certain leagues, for American football, have taken a more active approach, despite resistance from a lot of basically boomers who are like, if you don't hit them as hard as you can, then you might as well not even be playing the sport. Like this stupid fucking backwards, like, awful way of thinking about it. Just so steadfast.
It's like bloodthirst almost.
Yeah.
It's like a clean, in their eyes, a clean bloodthirst because it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I wanted to talk to you about maybe some players and teams. And, we'll close it off from there. So sit tight. We'll be right back. All right, everyone. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and conclude the episode by talking a little bit about maybe our respective teams, fandoms, etc. For me, I will say that I am a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I have been since maybe around the, I would say completely around the mid-2000s. I mean, it was much earlier on when I had specifically chosen not to root for the Cowboys. That was, I think, my big driving force, was choosing to not support the Cowboys on the back of watching a game with my family and wanting to support the team that wasn't in white, but the team that was in green, because they had a lot cooler uniforms. And for me, my Eagles fandom was solidified, I think, the year that I started fantasy football, and that was in 2004. And that was I ended up having Donovan McNabb and Brian Westbrook on my team. And it was a wonderful year. Oh, and I also had the Eagles defense. So it was a great year. I won my league, and it was really on the back of, a fantastic performance by Donovan McNabb. So that it's like, hey, I'm good with this. This works. But from a college standpoint, Tennessee Volunteers, being a Tennessee guy, has helped. It's been a little bit downhill since since the old championship in '98. It's been a bit of a rough couple of decades. It's been a really rough couple of decades. It has been an awful fucking couple of decades. Okay.
So I worry about saying this on the cast, but I want to be honest with our listeners, because you seem to love calling me the Blue Tennessean or some version of
Hey, it's the Blue Tennessean. Turn the text on. Here we go. Boop.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So when I moved to Tennessee, primarily it was to be closer to my grandfather, who I ended up living with due to some personal issues. And he was a huge Tennessee Volunteers fan. So for the time while I was in Tennessee, I was also a Tennessee Volunteers fan. And I know you've actually talked about it before. I've never said anything because I just didn't want to give you the satisfaction at all. Satisfaction at all. But for our viewers' sake,
damn,
I'm coming clean. I was a big Volunteers fan. I mean, like I said, for me, the game, and there's so much downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things about football is there's things happening, so I have to interact with people a lot less when a Premier League game's happening, because basically, with the exception of halftime,
there's no downtime.
Yeah, there's no downtime. With NFL, people want to talk, and they're like, and if you go to like other parties, people double dip, and you want to strangle them and things like that. Like, you're like, come on, guys, don't do that. It's not that difficult. There's all this interaction that isn't really high on my list of priorities. Where so it's never been the most glamorous to me. It's something I inured more than anything else.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
No, I think that's That's fair. I mean, that is something I've noticed over the years in, as my footy fandom developed and as I think shifted gears a little bit on the sports that I chose to primarily indulge in, that the downtime, I appreciated there not being any, and there being so much more to take in, watching footy. There is a sense of camaraderie, I think, that comes with American football that, is, it's not that it's better or worse. It's just different, right? It's just different. It's a different culture. It's a different way of, taking in the spirit of your team, right? For a lot of, I'd say for a lot of, our European listeners, it's like supporting your local club. And, supporting a college football team really does feel like supporting your local club. And, for the NFL, then it kind of feels more like supporting whichever Premier League club, or depending on your championship, basically supporting much beyond your local. And like I said, for me, the camaraderie is much stronger. And my sense of connection is much stronger to the University of Tennessee than it is for Philadelphia. I've never lived in Philadelphia. Like I've never, and I never will.
You do not want to.
So not high up on the bucket list, but yeah. I don't see a reason for me to stop being an Eagles fan just because of it. Right? I can still, and it's the same reason, I support Arsenal. Am I going to ever live in North London? No, but that doesn't stop me from, basically saying I have invested enough of myself, into this organization. But again, it's different. It's really genuinely different with college football. Now, unfortunately for me in college football right now, I can't really be asked to invest a whole hell of a lot. The sport, I think, at the collegiate level has dwindled in interest for me. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Alabama has just been so good for so long that you just don't give a shit, right? It's like watching, the same. It has to be like watching, I don't know, Bundesliga, right? Where Bayern Munich just wins all the time, and every once in a while, you'll have another side that comes up and mounts a challenge, but then it's just right back to Bayern Munich. So really, that is the college football landscape right now. In that it's just Alabama is such a dominating force and takes away so many resources from so many other schools in regards to player development. Because you can go through and you look at their roster, and they've got like you could split up their roster in two and probably have two teams that would play in the championship. It is and some of these guys don't even see anything with like the first team, right? It's they're essentially second or third string guys, and they would walk onto any other school. So it's disgusting. But I do want to encourage anybody who's listening to this episode that doesn't already listen to Brody Sports Talk. That is my the other podcast that I am a co-host of. I've been doing it now for about a year and a half, I think. Feels like that at least. And it is it's a good time. Like I said, it is mostly NFL-centric. Like every once in a while, we'll talk about something else sports-wise. But, for the most part, it's 4 NFL-centric episodes a week. So if American football is more your thing, then, give us a spin. Tell us what you think. If you like hearing me, at least, then please... actually, if you don't like hearing me, then please tune in anyway. Caleb and Derek are pretty cool, too.
We heard from Caleb last year too.
Yeah,
at the Everton. Yeah.
We may have to bring back Caleb here sometime soon. I mean, Everton's doing okay.
They're doing better than Arsenal.
You can. Stop this. This isn't a Chelsea episode. Quit it. I'm gonna just change the overlay for our recording, and it's gonna just say the Blue Tennessean instead of Andrew now. So
no.
But on that note, we're going to go ahead and call it an episode. I do want to, again, as always, thank Particle Docs for our cool intro and outro music. And I hope you guys have been enjoying Midweek Madness. I've noticed that some of our listens have varied based on topic. And hopefully this is a pretty decent one. If you guys want more content like this, just let us know. We're happy to, keep up with the Midweek Madness, and hopefully we can, get some good topics throughout the remainder of the year. Any final thoughts before we call it a night?
I'm just gonna throw this out there. Maybe we'll think about like putting up a poll. You guys can pick some of the topics.
Ooh,
we can talk about what you guys want,
that's
right?
actually a
Because
good idea.
this is a service, right? After to a degree, it's a service to kind of help our listeners out as well. If you guys want to bring something up, if you want to just put it in the comments, I would love to hear from it. I always like learning new things. So if we talk about something neither of us know anything about, we'll both do our Wikipedia thing that Sean won't admit to doing. But
What are you talking about? Every time you see the screen go wide over here next to me, I promise you I'm not looking anything up.
So yeah, you guys want to hear about black metal? That'd be great. It'd be hilarious listening to Sean try to talk about black metal.
It might be an Andrew solo episode, but we'll see.
Okay, I'll regale you. I did spend some time in a black metal band. I'll guys regale you. I'll sing for you. That's what I'll do. I'll sing some black metal for you.
So that way, if Lukaku scores fewer than 18 goals, is that what we're gonna hear?
No. I couldn't do that to you guys.
We're actually. So if that does happen, I am officially requesting Wonderwall.
Oh, come on. No.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. God,
I'm requesting "Love Me" by the Cardigans for you, Sean.
Hey, I will gladly do, and I will do a country music rendition.
Do you remember? I'm sorry, guys. This is midway, but do you remember us taking that Yu-Gi-Oh trip and singing the Cardigans at full tilt to keep ourselves awake because you were basically passing out while driving?
I have told people that story so many times.
That was a good time. That was a good time.
Because it was like 45 minutes straight of just whatever song. I mean, this was before, you really. I had an iPod Classic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that I didn't actually have it at that point because that was after I had jumped into the pool with all of my stuff in my pockets at a drama class, it was like a show after party, and that was not a smart decision on my part. But nevertheless, that's it for us here on Midweek Madness. On behalf of Andrew, my name is Sean. We are Gunners and Blues. We are signing out. Have a good one, everybody.
See you guys.